The MGT series is a range of body-on-frame convertible sports cars that were produced by MG from 1936 to 1955. The series included the MG TF, MG TB, MG TC, MG TD, and MG TF Midget models. The last of these models, the TF, was replaced by the MGA. The TF name was reinstated in 2002 on the mid-engined MG TF sports car. TA Midget, the MG TA Midget replaced the PB in 1936. It was an evolution of the previous car and was 3 inches wider in its track at 45 inches and 7 inches longer in its wheelbase at 94 inches. The previous advanced overhead cam inline-4 engine was now not in use by any other production car, so it was replaced by the MPJ GOHV unit from the Wolseley 10 but with twin SU carburetors, modified camshaft and manifolding. The engine displaced just 1292 cc's, with a stroke of 102 mm and a bore of 63.5 mm, and power output was 50 horsepower at 4,500 RPMs. The 4-speed manual gearbox now had synchronization on the 2 top ratios and was connected to the engine by a cork-faced clutch running in oil. Unlike the PB, hydraulic brakes were fitted with 9-inch drums. Like the PB, most were 2-seat open cars with a steel body on an ash frame. A bench-type seat was fitted with storage space behind. From 1938 the car could also be had with a more luxurious tick-for-drop head Cooper copyright body by Salmons of Newport Pagnell, and 252 were made. The soft top could be used in 3 positions, fully open, closed or open just over the seats. Wind-up windows were fitted to the higher top doors, making the car more weathertight, and individual bucket seats used in the fully carpeted interior. Complete chassis were fitted with a very basic body at the Abingdon factory and driven to Newport Pagnell to have their coachwork fitted. A closed airline Cooper copyright made by Car Bodies, as fitted to the P-Type, was also offered, but only 1 or 2 is thought to have been made. The T-Type was capable of reaching almost 80 miles per hour in standard tune with a 0–60 miles per hour time of 23.1 seconds. 3003 were made, and in 1936 it cost £222 on the home market, the same as had been asked for the PB. When first introduced, the model was known as the T-Type, and only after the advent of the TB did the TA designation come into use. Alan Tomlinson won the 1939 Australian Grand Prix driving in milligram TA. TB Midget, the TA was replaced by the TB Midget in May 1939. It had a smaller but more modern XPAG engine as fitted to the Morris 10 Series M, but in a more highly tuned state and like the TA with twin SU carburetors. This 1250cc's I4 unit featured a slightly less square 66.6 mm bore on 90 mm stroke and had a maximum power output of 54 horsepower at 5200 RPMs. The oil-immersed clutch was also replaced by a dry plate type and gear ratios revised. Available as an opening 2-seater or more luxurious tick-for-drop head Cooper copyright, this is the rarest of the T-Type cars. Only 379 were made. TC Midget, the TC Midget was the first Pursuer MG, launched in 1945. It was quite similar to the pre-war TB, sharing the same 1250cc's pushrod OHV engine with a slightly higher compression ratio of 7.4:1, giving 54.5 bhp at 5200 RPMs. The makers also provided several alternative stages of tuning for specific purposes. It was exported to the United States, even though only ever built in right-hand drive. The export version had slightly smaller US specification sealed beam headlights and larger twin rear lights, as well as turn signals and chrome-plated front and rear bumpers. The body was approximately 4 inches wider than the TB, measured at the rear of the doors to give more cockpit space. The overall car width remained the same, resulting in narrower running boards with 2 tread strips as opposed to the previous 3. The tachometer was directly in front of the driver, while the speedometer was on the other side of the dash in front of the passenger. 10,001 TCs were produced, from September 1945 to November 1949, more than any previous MG model. It cost £527 on the home market in 1947. Fuel consumption was 28 mpg. Its 0–60 mph time was 22.7 seconds, a respectable performance at the time. TD Midget. The 1950 TD Midget combined the TC's drivetrain, a modified hypoid-geared rear axle, the MG Y-type chassis, a familiar T-type style body and independent suspension using coil springs from the MG Y-type saloon. A 1950 road test report described as most striking the resulting transformation in the comfort of riding. Also lifted from the company's successful 1¼ saloon for the TD was the rack and pinion steering. In addition, the TD featured smaller 15-inch disc-type road wheels, a left-hand drive option and standard equipment bumpers and overriders. The car was also 5 inches wider with a track of 50 inches. For the driver, the all-weather protection was good by the standards of the time. For night driving, instrument illumination was effective but not dazzling, by a pale green lighting effect. There was still no fuel gauge, but the 12 British gallons of tank capacity gave a range between refueling stops of about 300 miles and a green light on the fascia flashed a warning, when the fuel level was down to about 2½ British gallons. In 1950 the TD-MKII competition model was introduced, produced alongside the standard car, with a more highly tuned engine using an 8.1:1 compression ratio giving 57 bhp at 5,500 rpms. The higher compression ratio engine was offered with export markets in mind, and would not have been suitable for the UK, where thanks to the continued operation of wartime fuel restrictions, buyers were still limited to 72-octane pooled petrol. The TD-MKII also featured twin fuel pumps, additional Andrex dampers, and a higher ratio rear axle. Nearly 30,000 TDs had been produced, including about 1,700 Mk2 models, when the series ended in 1953 with all but 1656 exported, 23,488 of them to the US alone. The main complaint that US owners had with the MG TD sold in the US was the British 12-volt electrical system, which was hard to service when most US cars were still using 6 volts. Also, they had minor complaints over the lack of water temperature and fuel gauges. But in general and surveys, owners of the Americanized MG TD had more positive remarks than negative. 0–60 mph time was 22.7 seconds according to Popular Mechanics. An example tested by the Motor Magazine in 1952 had a top speed of 77 mph and could accelerate from 0–60 mph in 18.2 seconds. A fuel consumption of 26.7 miles per imperial gallon was recorded. In 1998, the rights, intellectual properties and trademarks associated with the production of the MG TD were acquired by TD Cars SDNBHD in Malaysia to reproduce the TD series as TD 2000. TF and TF 1500 Midget. The TF Midget, launched October 15, 1953, was a facelifted TD, fitted with the TD Mark II engine, headlights fed into the fenders, a sloping radiator grille concealing a separate radiator, and a new pressurized cooling system along with a simulated external radiator cap. This XPAG engine's compression ratio had been increased to 8.11 and extra-large valves with stronger valve springs and larger carburetors increased output to 57.5 bhp at 5,500 rpms. In mid-1954 the engine capacity was increased by 17% to 1466 cc's and designated XPEG. The bore was increased to 72 mm and compression raised to 8.31 giving 63 bhp at 5,000 rpms and a 17% increase in torque. The car was now designated TF 1500, and externally distinguished by a cream background enamel nameplate on both sides of the bonnet, placed just to the rear of the forward bonnet release buttons. Production ended at chassis number TF10100 on April 4, 1955 after 9,602 TFs had been manufactured, including 2 prototypes and 3,400 TF 1500s. The TF was superseded by the MGA. See also, MG Car Club. References, Notes Bibliography. Further reading. External links: MG TF 1500 1955, TTT2, a free bi-monthly online technical MGT type publication, the MG Car Club T Register, 1950 MGTD Restoration Project, the story of Winston Dr. Jim Brown's 1954 MGTF, the original MG TD Midget, the original MG TF Midget,